told you we were almost there. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, it's that time again for the Old Humble Distilling Company Whiskey Happy Hour. Are you ready? Are you pumped? Are you excited? Are you having a great night? I'm having a great night. Let's see if we can ruin it by talking about Ukraine, huh? No, but seriously. I am the Old Humble Guy, your friendly neighborhood sin merchant, owner and operator of the Old Humble Distilling Company, your spirit guide, if you will. If you'll let me be. I don't need that channel open either. Hey, we're thinning some stuff out on the old screens here so we can have things run slightly better. I'm looking at dropped frames and dropped all kinds of bad stuff going on up there. We need to clear that and get that going better. So this is, of course, the first night of the show, first night of shows for the week. Everything we do builds up to our big show on Friday. What's the big show on Friday? The big show on Friday is Friday nights live from Old Humble. We had our first ever live Friday night last week with the unexpected. No, that's not right. Download is in progress. Exit. Thank you. The hell was something was downloading off my Chrome. Ah, shit, I got a virus. I'm sure of it. That's not optimal. Something was downloading off of Chrome, and that's not something that I want to see. I'm gonna have to do something to my hard drive, is my hunch. Anyway, so everything leads up to our big show on Friday nights. Our big show on Friday nights is the live Friday nights live from Old Humble. This week we have Paul Day coming at us on our Friday nights live. Let's go ahead and get those Friday night live with Greg Day. Sorry, I keep trying to call him Paul. His name is definitely not Paul. He is Greg Day. Do I not have the lower thirds on this one? I don't have my lower thirds on this one. Let me see if I can get my lower thirds working on this screen. I did everything except set up my lower thirds. So let's see if we can get that set up proper. Huh. Am I ending the recording every time? I think I am. I think I'm ending a recording every time I hit the space bar. That's unfortunate because I want to keep these things recorded. And I think I've just learned the problem that I've been having with my recordings. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Forget about the lower thirds. Y'all have to just go away. You'll be back next week with the lower thirds. We'll just do that next week. And we'll get rid of this. We'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of this. We're just gonna go at it. Gonna go for it. I got my new little the new feature of the night is my spinning logo thingy. Can I catch it? Can I get it? Where is it? right there. Hey, nope, can't catch it. You cannot catch them all, unfortunately, not the spinning logo thingy. Um, Tomorrow night is we basically have 3 nights of happy hours. We have our well, tonight being the Ukraine update night, kind of a current eventsy type of thing. Tomorrow night, our Wednesday night show is kind of the philosophy and science show, drams and dr- philosophical drams. I think we'll call it that. Maybe tipple and thoughts. Maybe we'll call it that. Maybe I don't know, but some kind of philosophical notion. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about pi, circles, perimeter, circumference. We're really going to dig into the wonders of pi. Pi is an amazingly awesome discovery that mankind came across, and it is definitely something that is worth exploring a little bit deeper. And we're going to have some fun with it because I am a math geek, and being a math geek as I am, I see looking at math and science and the marvelous puzzles of numbers and how they come together as kind of looking at the face of God himself or herself, itself, God itself. Um, the universal language of the universe and all that. The universal language of the cosmos. We don't want to repeat the universe there. Anyway, but tonight, and then of course Thursday night we do our big Thursday night trivia show. Our Thursday night trivia show this week is going to be Nerdcore trivia. All the trivia nerds are fit to answer. All the nerd trivia that you can come up with. I am curating 10 good questions, 12 good questions. I will have them written down on cards. They will flash up on the screen. The question will flash up on the screen. You will have time to answer it, 90 seconds. The person who answers the most questions correctly will then get 20 boozy bucks. The next people, second and third place, get 10 and 5 each. We have 35 boozy bucks on the line. Boozy bucks, which of course can be converted into actual bucks at the company store, the Old Humble Company store. So you got to be a subscriber to win. You got to be a part of the show to win. You can't win if you don't play. You can't play if you're not a subscriber. I guess you can play if you're not a subscriber. You just can't win if you're not a subscriber. Boy, that would be an awkward moment. Be all like, "Are you a subscriber?" And they're like, "No." And you go look and see, and then like the subscriber count goes up by 1 because they just subscribed. That would be funny. Something is not working right on my chat function, which is going to make it hard for us to do the chat later on in the show if we have chat active. Chactive? Chactive? Is that a word? That's a word now. But tonight's sponsor. Let's get into it. Tonight's sponsor. We've talked about the shows we have coming up. Tonight's sponsor is the Old Humble Distilling Company's Double Oak Rye. Delicious rye whiskey, aged 2.5 years, with extra oak staves put in the barrel to give it a darker color, deeper flavor, and more balanced profile than your typical high rye straight whiskeys. Get it at a store near you. And if it's not there at a store near you, bug the shopkeep until they do have it at a store near you. There we go. The chat function is working, almost working. I just need to connect it to the stream. Here we go. It's working now. Which is very, I mean, doesn't fucking matter. I kid. Of course it matters. Of course it matters. Totally matters. Let's see if I go back to my main screen here. Gimme. I'm just making sure that things work. This was our slight technical difficulty that we were having earlier. There it is. Our slight technical difficulty that we were having earlier. Weird thing happened. I lost internet connection entirely. Just completely lost the internet connection. Don't know what happened. So yeah, it might be the stupid Twidget thing that's giving me issues. But hey, the stream's working clean and nice. And anyway, so where were we? This time last week, we were talking about, giving you the updates with Ukraine, talking about the updates in Ukraine. Russia was pulling away from Kyiv looking to be basically pulling out. They had conceded that they did not achieve their stated original objective. They didn't say, "Whoops, our bad, we lost. Fuck it." They said that they have achieved the strategic goal of what did they say? Achieved the strategic goal of liberating the Donbass region and distracting Ukrainian forces in the west, or something to that effect. Or I'm sorry, weakening the Ukrainian forces. That's what it was. They had achieved their strategic goal of weakening Ukrainian forces, and now they would focus on their true goal of consolidating their hold in the east, which was never the stated goal. The stated goal was always to overthrow the Ukrainian government, denazification, demilitarization, uh, all that fucking nonsense. Um, and just to be clear, the government of Ukraine is not a Nazi government. It is not a fascist government. It is not what Russia was claiming it was. While it is true that there is a division of the army that was a stated neo-Nazi militia that was adopted into the National Guard, down in the southeast of the country, it is by no means the entire army. It is by no means the entire government. It is by no means Ukraine is run by Nazis. That's not true. It is entirely not true. So that said, Russia's stated goals were just nonsense. It is the plain truth, the clear truth was that Ukraine was moving to join NATO. NATO had been weakened over the last 4 years. Um, the alliance was seen to be as fractious as it was ever going to become. And if action wasn't taken now to further weaken the alliance, possibly find some way to drive a wedge between members of the alliance, and certainly a wedge between the members of the alliance and Ukraine itself, then if it wasn't done now, it was never going to be done. And if Ukraine did join NATO, then Russia would lose its opportunity to control the future of Ukraine. So the time to do it was now or never, because NATO was never going to get any weaker. The United States wasn't going to be pulling out of NATO. Nobody was going to be pulling out of NATO. But if Russia attacks Ukraine and NATO doesn't fully support and fully defend Ukraine, then Ukraine isn't going to join NATO. And NATO losing Ukraine, Ukraine being, or the West losing Ukraine, NATO losing Ukraine, if that happens, then that should be considered, I think, a victory for Russia, even though it was a Pyrrhic victory because they've lost so much of their capacity and capability and armaments and weaponry and I mean maybe they lost all that shit by design and now they can, spend a ridiculous amount of money rebuilding their military. But I don't think that was the plan. I don't really think that was the plan to build like throw a bunch of tanks at Ukraine and get a bunch of tanks blown up, get a bunch of jets blown up, get a bunch of artillery blown up, and then build new stuff. I don't think that was the plan. That's a really dumb strategic plan. If that was the plan, that's a really dumb strategic plan, and I don't think that they're that dumb. This is a delightful whiskey. I am impressed every damn time I drink this whiskey. It is delightful. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, losing anywhere between 7 and 15,000 men, that's certainly not a good plan for your military. That's not a good way to rebuild your military. A better way to rebuild your military is to just build more stuff, mothball it, destroy it, whatever, and then just build more stuff. Just dump a bunch of money into building more stuff. Much better way to rebuild a military than to send it off across the border and have it get shot to shit. So that certainly is not the strategy. That's not the plan. That's unlikely to be the plan. Who do we have in here? Mr. Great Shot. Cheers. Cheers, Mark. Yeah, I think that's he wants. I think that was kind of the intent was political control over Ukrainian mineral wealth, political control over the ports, political control. I think that was the plain goal from the beginning. And if Ukraine continued its westernization, if Ukraine continued its liberalization of its economy, if Ukraine continued its, and by liberalization I mean a more open economy versus an authoritarian economy. Um, if they continued to look towards the west and less towards the east, I mean the basic economic plan for these little shitpot totalitarian regimes is the the mineral wealth, the oil companies, the extraction companies, the the resource companies, they extract the stuff from the soil. They're private companies. They're ostensibly private companies, but there's one guy who manages the company or who runs it. Either it's the oligarch who runs the company that extracts the wealth and takes 10% off the top and diverts 10% to help launder the money, or in the case of the oil firms, the oil companies are international, transnational corporations, whatever. There's one guy who's like the gatekeeper for the pipelines or something to that effect. There's like this this resource management company that the resources go through that company. They don't do anything. They don't manage anything. They're kind of a broker. They flip the switch to move stuff from A to B to B to A, and those guys filter some funds off the top, it's just a straight up methodology of extracting resources out of the economy and diverting it to the autocrats that oversee all this shit. It's a full on kleptocratic type of economy, and that is what was happening in Ukraine back in way back in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012, 2013. That was what was happening back then, and that was what was the whole damn showdown thing of, you've got to get rid of these people in order to get rid of corruption within the system. These are the things you need to do to get rid of corruption in the system. You need to get rid of this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. This guy is not investigating this properly. You need to replace him. You need to replace. These are the things you need to do. And they did that, and then Petroshenko came into power and undid some of that, and then they kicked Petroshenko out of office when he decided to change course from the stated goal of moving closer to the West and liberalizing, reforming, and all the other stuff that he was doing. Decided to change course. They kicked his ass out of power too, because the people did not want that course of action to happen. Full on kleptocratic economies. That's how Putin does it. That's how Belarus does it. That's how well, Chechnya is not an independent. That's a region. That's how Tajikistan does it. That's how these dictators make their money and keep their money. They have a guy at the company that diverts the money over. The company is ostensibly a private company, but it's corrupt down to the fucking core. Because the company does what the company does, but they also pay off the government, and that's their entire reason for being. We all know the game. We all know what's going on. We tolerate it in a lot of places. But in order for Ukraine to join the EU, which is what they wanted to do, they had to put an end to this practice, and they've been working on putting an end to this practice. And if Ukraine joins the EU, then the kleptocracy comes to an end, and that's an end of Putin's money train. If Ukraine joins NATO, it's not just a security threat for Russia, which ostensibly they say it is a security threat. It's not really a security threat because it's defensive, not an offensive pact. Although it can be an offensive pact if they want it to be an offensive pact. It's not really that hard to flip the switch and send tanks in forward instead of reverse. But ostensibly, if Ukraine joins NATO, then there's further military reform along with the economic reform, along with the political reform, and then Russia loses Ukraine forever. They're gone. Um, so whatever stated purposes that Russia had, the real reasons were obvious and clear, and it's not a secret. It's like a publicly known secret, like everybody knows. Um, and if they don't attack now, like you could look at it from the outside and go, this was stupid. There's no reason for them to do this. There's no reason for them to attack. They could have maintained perfectly good relations. They could have maintained political relations. They could have maintained neighborly, friendly relations. There's all kinds of countries that are neighborly and friendly. You know, United States and Canada, we profit from each other and do a tremendous amount of business with each other. France and Germany and Spain and the whole, uh, uh, league of friendly nations that they have going on over there. But the whole point of the way they have shit set up over there is that it's not on the up and up. And if you're doing everything in a legal and open manner, then you're not getting money diverted into your private coffers, and you don't become the richest man on the planet from being a government apparatchik going from the KGB up to the presidency of of Russia. That's not how you become the richest man on the planet. He's worth like something like 75, 85, $100 billion, something like that. It's, of course, he can't use any of that now because it's locked away and frozen. Sorry, Putin. Um, but if he doesn't do it now, he never will get that opportunity because it's entirely possible in the next 5 years, 10 years, that Ukraine joins the EU. They join the NATO alliance. They join the EU, and the opportunity that he had now, when NATO was at its weakest, most fractured, and you know, presumably from the outside looking in, after the work that had been done to fracture NATO and weaken the alliance, it was never going to get weaker. It was only going to get stronger, and the path forward for Ukraine joining NATO was clear. Of course, as it appears, Ukraine may or may not join NATO now, because it appears, the analyses that I've read and seen and chatter that I've listened to, it appears that if NATO wasn't willing to stand up to protect Ukraine, then Ukraine's like, well, why the hell did we even? I mean, what's the fucking point of the alliance anyway, right? Um, and like I said earlier, if NATO loses Ukraine, if the invasion was sparked because NATO wanted, NATO and Ukraine were kind of getting cozy and cozy and cozier. Um, if that sparked the hostilities, and that sparked the invasion, then that should put a chill on other countries joining NATO. It hasn't. Sweden, Finland, uh, and I think three other countries. I can't remember. Moldova. Uh, I don't know. There were another couple of countries that had been on the outside looking in and had been resistant to it and said, "Yeah, let's do it." They're in. They're ready to go. But if that's what sparked the invasion of Ukraine, then it's now in Ukraine's best interest to say, "Look, okay, we won't do this. We just need security agreements," which is what it sounds like they're doing uh, at the peace talks right now. But looking at it, of course, safely from my chair here in Humble, Texas, I can look at that. I can see that and say that's insane. They need to hold out. They're winning the war. They're winning the fight. They should hold out and then lean on their own self determination. If they want to join NATO, they should join NATO. If NATO wants them to join, but I don't know. Of course, nobody knows what's been going on behind the scenes. Nobody knows if NATO has told them, you're really never going to be able to join. So I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. I don't. I truly, truly don't know. But again, if NATO loses Ukraine, then the whole little Russian expedition would have been, in my eyes, successful. Russia will have successfully achieved their policy goal of preventing Ukraine from joining NATO. That doesn't mean they prevent Ukraine from westernizing, moving towards the EU, moving towards the Western alliances. That doesn't mean they prevented that, but it does mean that it has bought them time to continue to meddle in the domestic affairs and continue to create and cause chaos, which is what Russia is really, really good at. They can't win a fight, but they can certainly sit there and pick on people and create chaos. And as a chaos agent, they are very effective. As a chaos agent, they're very dangerous because you never really know what happens in chaos. But if you're at the bottom of the ladder trying to claw your way up, there's two ways to work your way up the ladder. You either climb over the people in the ladder ahead of you, or you work at destroying the ladder entirely. And then the people on the ladder fall down, and now all you have to do is climb over the pile of broken bodies, which is a horrifying idea. In Game of Thrones, they said chaos is a ladder, but I don't agree with that analysis. Chaos isn't a ladder. Chaos destroys the ladder and creates an entirely new thing. Um, and that seems to be Putin's MO over the last, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years or so, is to destroy the ladder. The world order is created in such a way that it has them on the outside looking in. So he looks at it and says, well, the order needs to be destroyed. So that has always seemed to be Putin's methodology. Um, but again, I make whiskey. I'm not a political scientist. I just look at the systems and try and understand how things work. Um, but what we're seeing now is, since they've conceded their original goals were not successful, and moved the goalposts and said, yes, now we're successful with the goalposts that are at the 40-yard line, which is the yard line I say they got to. Just pulled that yard line right out of my butthole. And they're regrouping and doing what they're pulling out of cities in the west, pulling out of cities in the central area. We're seeing apparent signs of just gross atrocities that have happened on the ground. We already knew some of the stuff that was going on with the bombings of civilian areas, bombings of shelters, bombings of uh, hospitals and schools, and all the stuff that we knew was going on. The reports that we're seeing now, as they're pulling out of these regions, and Ukrainian forces and Western media and Red Cross and all these other people are able to come in. What at least I don't know about what I was worried about happening from the beginning appears to have happened, where they were just indiscriminately just leveling cities, leveling neighborhoods, leveling houses, killing civilians, doing basically the same thing they did in Chechnya, where they said, well, at least in Chechnya, they said, look, you have 72 hours to get the hell out of the city. Anybody left in the city, we're going to assume as a combatant, and we're just going to level the whole damn city. This is Russia's MO. This is how they fight wars. They fight wars very much on the same philosophy as the Mongolians, where they're just like, you know what, line them up, kill them all. Just do it. War is brutal, and they're going to make sure it stays that way. But what we're seeing reports of, this is heavy. I got a drink. What we're seeing reports of is people with their hands tied behind their back, shot in the head. Of course, we're hearing graphic, just horribly graphic stuff that happened, but I don't know how true the horribly graphic stuff that happened is, because of exaggerations and exaggeration for effect and all that stuff. But when you see sidewalks lined up with bodies, hands tied behind their backs, kids, women, children, men, all of them lined up, hands tied, bullet to the back of that there's no exaggeration there. That is what it is. That happened. When bodies are in the street, so they have to clear bodies out of the street in order for the trucks and tanks to continue driving down the road. That is something that actually happened. Bodies that have been of civilians that have been booby trapped, so when you move them, the pin comes out of the grenade, and that has actually happened. But they killed the dog in front of the owner and raped the woman in front of the children, and that likely happened. But we don't know. Like, you can't, like, once all the stuff is done, it's real easy for the stories to grow and get conflated, and we need to be careful, of course, when we hear things and we repeat things, because it doesn't it's not helpful to repeat things that are not verifiably true. Uh, we've run into that same thing in other wars with the Kuwait War, where they're like, oh, they were going into hospitals and taking the hospital equipment and unplugging people and bringing it back to Iraq, and then people on ventilators were dying, and a lot of those reports were turned out to be completely and totally false. But when you can't fabricate the report of the tanks that were blown up and sitting on the street. That tank got blown up. It's right there. The tank was blown up. See, it's a flaming hulk of a tank. You can't go giving reports of exploding tanks and then bringing people back to the street and saying, well, it was right there yesterday. Tanks just don't get up and walk off. But that brings up the logical question then. If war crimes were committed, what do we do about it? Do they just sign off on peace and say, okay, no harm, no foul? They didn't do that to Slobodan Milosevic. Milosevic was, the last time to my memory at least. What is this from Mr. Great Shot? That's the next thing. Yeah. See, they didn't let it slide with Milosevic. War crimes tribunals were assembled. He was indicted. He was convicted. Eventually, he was arrested and brought to jail. He died of a heart attack in 2006 in jail. But cheers, John Jacobs. Welcome to the party. But Bosnia and Serbia are not Russia. And we know that international law applies to all countries. But we also know that international law does not apply to all countries equally, because we had a lot of soldiers in Afghanistan who committed very heinous acts that were not tried in international courts. We have soldiers in Iraq that committed heinous acts that were not tried in international courts. We have soldiers in Vietnam. We had soldiers in Korea. We had soldiers in military conflicts for a very, very long time. United States military soldiers that committed heinous acts that were not tried. Agents who acting on behalf of the United States committed acts of torture with no accountability, under the legal cover of a memo saying these actions aren't torture, which later on it was kind of reversed. So I don't know. I mean, they're talking about war crimes. They're talking about tribunals. They're talking about bringing these things up in the International Court of Justice, to which Russia is not a signatory of the agreement. We're not a signatory to the agreement either. But how do you then? It's Russia. It's not Panama. And U.S. Marines invaded Panama because Noriega, we were going to be giving the Panama Canal back to Panama, and Noriega was a very, very, very corrupt and very, very, very criminal individual. We put Marines in Panama, arrested him, brought him back to a sitting executive of an independent country, dropped Marines in his country, arrested him, brought him back to the United States, put him on trial in a Miami courtroom, and made him rot in jail in a federal prison in, I think, Florida? Might be Colorado. I can't remember where he rotted in jail. I think he's dead. I can't remember. I'm sure Google knows. I haven't asked. International law, and that wasn't even international law. That was a domestic. That was a U.S. federal law. You're in violation of U.S. federal law. I think it was drug trafficking. I think was the charges that we put down on Manuel Noriega. I think it was. I think that's what it was. That wasn't even war crimes. But do you even think for a second that a division of Marines is going to land in Moscow? Knock on Putin's door of his penthouse apartment, whatever he has in fucking Moscow. Knock on his door and say, "We're here to serve this arrest warrant on behalf of the International Criminal Court of Appeal or International Criminal Court. You can come with us, or you can not, but one way or another, you're going to stand trial, dead or alive." You think that's really going to happen? I don't know how that works. I don't. I can't conceive in my head a way that that works. My hunch is, if I had to guess, there's going to be some sacrificial generals that get shoved under the bus. Uh, they'll say the orders were carried down to pacify the region. These generals took it too far. They're the criminals, not me. So Putin will get off. The generals will get arrested. There'll be a couple of sacrificial generals. Maybe a few of them the few of the ones that were killed will be named. A few of the ones that are alive still will be named, and they'll be the ones that get arrested, put on trial. 3 of them will probably be convicted. We'll say 3. I don't see how, if I'm Ukraine, I don't see how I sit there and go, yeah, let's make peace with people who've just committed atrocities in my country. I don't know. I don't know what that end game looks like. But they're at the peace table. Um, they're at peace talks. I think it's in Turkey. I think one face-to-face meetings between Putin and Zelensky are supposed to be coming. Let's switch screens and turn on the chat, shall we? Let's do that. That'll be easier for me to keep track of. I thought it was 2000. I thought Noriega. No, yeah, Manuel Noriega. That's right. He did. He died in Panama City. It was Milosevic that died in jail. But Noriega went to. He did go to jail, if I recall, didn't he? They arrested him and put him on trial and put him in jail, and then he did get out of jail, if I recall. Remind me if you don't mind, please do. Um, I'm I I was just a wee lad when they invaded Panama and brought him to jail. But oh yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I didn't think my memory was completely ruined. I thought he went to jail. I thought they did. They put him on trial in Miami, if I'm not mistaken, and put his ass in jail, and he rotted in jail. He didn't die in jail. It was Milosevic that died in jail, heart attack. But he was also very old, so it was very likely a real heart attack. Um, but I don't see a scenario where Putin gets arrested. Although it would be fucking dope as hell if he's face to face across the table at peace talks and Zelensky says, "You know what? You're under arrest." And Ukrainian security forces walk into the room and arrest him on the spot. That'd be boss as hell. And he may not get out of the building, but talk about going down in a blaze of glory. Shot down in a blaze of glory. My Bon Jovi song right there. Blaze of Glory, ladies and gentlemen, from the Young Guns LP. Yeah, so I mean, this is heavy, and it's been weighing on my mind for like 4 days now since Russia started pulling out. We started seeing the reports of atrocities and what they've done. This is my therapy, so y'all are enjoying. Y'all get to be my therapist, couch or chair or whatever. Tomorrow's going to be a fun show. We're going to talk about pie. Pie is fucking awesome. Tomorrow's going to be a great show. But tonight, I got to get through this. As more reports and more stories of the atrocities are going to come out, they're going to have a dossier. I don't see how. I would be so very disappointed if the ultimate peace agreement came out. Ultimately, the peace agreement came out, and it was, we want security guarantees, and we'll enshrine neutrality. Of course, they can't just say we're going to enshrine neutrality on the Constitution. They have to actually go to a vote. The Parliament has to change the Constitution. Has to go to a vote to the people. The people have to agree to it. The people aren't going to fucking agree to it. So they can't just wave their hand and with a wave of a pen change the Constitution of the country. The Constitution can't just be changed. It has to go through a process. That's how actual democratic countries do things. Russia could just change the fucking Constitution because Putin wants to be in office for another 12 years, but Ukraine can't. We couldn't do it either. I mean, we can just say, okay, we'll change the Constitution to blah, 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 whatever. So I don't expect the peace talks to really bear a whole lot of fruit. But I really, really, really do hope that when all this dust settles, we will have seen the Western Alliance actually stand up and say, we're going to defend Western ideals and Western democratic ideals. I really do hope they say that. I really do hope it comes to that. And we see, I think Lithuania was sending tanks today. Poland has sent airplanes. There's some stuff that's happened that apparently we're not supposed to know about. That because I've seen reports of secret shuttles and meetings and stuff like that in the Air Force tracking websites where I'm getting my news and information from. I haven't been keeping. Yeah, I mean, truth be told, my news consumption is I've gone old school with news consumption. I get the news reports at the beginning of the day. At lunchtime, I get a fresh batch. It's like we used to do in the 80s and 90s, where you get the newspaper and you would kind of read through the headlines and see what's going on. You go, okay, that's cool. As opposed to now, when you get fed news every minute of every day, all the time, no, no. When I went camping a couple weeks back, we were in a we were at Inks Lake, and it was kind of in a canyon. It wasn't in a canyon. It was kind of a depression, like a bottom of a dale is what you would call it, where hills were all around. So we didn't have any internet coverage. We had no internet and no phones while we were at the camp. But what would happen is some more time in the middle of the night, the wind would blow just right, and you would get a delivery of internet and cell phone, and it would just go whoosh. So we would get a whole list of texts and a whole list of news updates, and your phone would just go around 2 in the morning or something like that. It would just go boop, 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 boop. So when you woke up in the morning, you could just kind of look at your phone and kind of scroll through and see what your family's doing from the text, see what's going on with the war, see what's going on with the government, see what's going on with your state, see what's going on with Final Four, March Madness, all that stuff. You just kind of scroll through and go, okay, cool, that's great. Put your phone back in your pocket and go on a hike. It was marvelous. It's absolutely great. Talk about clean mental health for a whole fucking week. So when we come back from that, I'm like, I'm going to keep this up. So I only get, I try to restrict my news updates to mornings and afternoons, and that's it. Just like 2 or 3 times a day. That's it. As opposed to getting this constant doom scrolling and drip of death and the foul stench of no. Twice a day. That's it. So that said, when I see something interesting, I'll go later on that afternoon and I'll do a deep dive into it. Which includes these reports out of Ukraine, because I'm super duper fascinated, because I said at the beginning of this, and I'll say it again now, this invasion of Ukraine is going to fundamentally change the structure of the world as we know it. It's going to, ever since I was a kid, ever since forever, Russia or the Soviet Union has been a major world power. Either the Soviet Union was a superpower or Russia was a partner or member of the G7, G20, G6, whatever G group they wanted to call them a member of. They've always been either as the Soviet Union, a major superpower, or as Russia, a major power among other powers. This will fundamentally change that. They will either the structure of Russia is going to change as a result of this invasion, or Russia will be fully ostracized and basically turned into a pariah state like North Korea and Iran. They're not a major world economy anymore. They haven't been for several years. Their economy is about the size of Florida's, if I'm not mistaken. Their population it's a significant population. They have a significant potential. They have a tremendous amount of resources, but because a significant portion of their resources get stolen and diverted away from development of the country, they're not living up to their potential. So I fully expect the structures as we know them and as they've operated in the past will change. They may get kicked off of the Security Council. Long shot, highly unlikely, but it could happen. I don't know what mechanism the United Nations General Assembly has to remove somebody from the Security Council. It'd be impossible if the Security Council has to agree to it because one country can veto. Guess what country would veto it? But the last time the United States was involved in a circumstance where a couple of small countries could hold the entire, or a couple of small states could hold the entire country hostage, we fundamentally changed our governing structure and drew up a fresh new constitution and established a more perfect union. So it's not out of the question. It's not impossible. It's not likely. But a broad restructuring of governance as we know it, world governance, world order. I mean, George Bush said in the late 1990s, that we're entering a new world order. I guess it was the early 1990s. George Bush was early 1990s. Bill Clinton was late 1990s. It's a new world order. It was, for the time, we'd had one superpower instead of two. But it wasn't so much a new world order as just a restructuring of the existing world order. I think we may actually be on the verge. I think we may be on the verge of entering a true new world order, but one where it's not one superpower, but really is, well, no, there'll still be one superpower, but it really is a coalition of governing peers of, governing democracies and one with all the muscle. But it wouldn't just be, it wouldn't be the United States and everyone else. It'd be everyone else and the United States. And there's a big distinction between the two of those things, where it's, in the past, the United States was able to dictate how things would be and bring everybody else along. I don't know. I find it hard to imagine a world where it would be everybody else dictating. I don't know. I don't know what the new world order is going to be. But I really do feel that this has the potential to shake the foundations of what we know and how we know things work to the core. Because democratic nations have been really super duper tolerant of these autocratic states just hanging out on their borders and doing what they do and being kleptocratic and stealing resources, and that's fine as long as they don't rock the boat and do stuff. But it was real easy to be bitchy about that and have an attitude about that when the states that were doing that were, you know, Nigeria and Iraq and Iran and North Korea and Pakistan and Sudan and Somalia and Libya and those guys. But when the states that start rocking the boat and causing chaos and causing problems are Russia and Hungary and Austria, now that's an entirely different situation. It's really easy in a geopolitical sense to have a coup in a intelligence agency sponsored coup in like Haiti or Myanmar or Burma, which is Myanmar, or one of these countries. It's really easy to kick over a little country and clean things up and sort things out. It's really hard to kick over the government of a big giant country. A fact that Russia had learned over the course of several decades when they tried to fuck with France, they tried to fuck with us, they tried to fuck with Scotland, they tried to fuck with England, they tried to fuck with Austria, they tried to fuck with Germany, they tried to fuck with all the political processes in all these Western states. It's really hard to mess with a big, complex, stable society. It's really easy to fuck with little bitty countries like, you know, UAE and Saudi Arabia and Tunisia and Libya and all those guys. And I know it, and like when you say it out loud, it sounds awful because it is. Um, but that's how geopolitics worked for like 40 years, from the 50s all the way, hell, 60 years, from the 50s all the way into the early 2000s. You have a dictator who's friendly, that's okay. But as soon as that dictator is not friendly anymore, well, now we have to get a new dictator. And if we want that country's resources and that dictator is not friendly, well, we get a new dictator. And we're okay with the dictators if they're friendly dictators. We're really okay with the democratic countries as long as the democratic countries are Western liberal democratic, Jeffersonian style democracies. We were really okay with that. But as soon as those Western liberal Jeffersonian democracies started to, get these communist or socialist ideas and maybe vote for a socialist or maybe vote for a communist, well, they can't have their own government anymore. We have to kick them over and get a new government. Uh, that's how geopolitics worked. You can get mad at me all you want, but that's how geopolitics worked from like the 1940s all the way through up to and including the invasion of Iraq. That's how it worked. Um, we were really cool with Iraq being a shitberg dictatorship as long as they sent us oil and didn't invade Kuwait. But as soon as they invaded Kuwait, it was enough of this shit. We can't have that anymore. Uh, we were really cool. We've always been really cool with Saudi Arabia. They came this close with that whole Osama bin Laden stuff. But they kicked him out of the country, sent him off to Somalia or Sudan, I think it was. Uh, they came this close, because but their oil's really cheap and really easy to go hold. We have a whole lot of infrastructure there. But that's the same operational mentality that's going on right now. That's why Russia invaded Ukraine, because dictator's fine as long as the dictator is on our side. But as soon as he's not on our side, their democracy, Ukrainian democracy, was fine as long as they elected Petroshenko, and the people in Ukraine were happy with Petroshenko as long as Petroshenko did what he said he would do. But as soon as he changed his stripes, as soon as he took off the mask and revealed himself to be Petroshenko, well, they kicked his ass out of office, didn't they? They didn't fuck around. Whole revolution kicked him out of office. Go back over to chat. We weren't exactly. Yeah, the USS Cole was not a cool thing, but we were we weren't particularly cool with Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia also did a tremendous amount of work to make sure that the people who were responsible for that, I don't even want to say that's not even entirely true. We were really mad at them for a while, but we got over it because their oil's really cheap. That wasn't a government toppling event. Um, and boy, I tell you what, if the Taliban had been if they had launched the 9/11 attacks from inside Saudi Arabia, not just using Saudi Arabians, and we know why they well, I think we know why they use Saudi Arabians because Saudi Arabians were easier to get into the United States than Pakistanis, right? Afghanis would have been able to get in the United States, get visas, chill out, learn how to fly planes. Saudis, because we're cool with Saudis. They're the good kind of Muslims, right? Yeah, that was sarcasm, by the way. We were good with the Saudis. That's why they use Saudis. But what happens in Ukraine? What happens with Russia? Because, same situation. They got a shit ton of minerals, they got a shit ton of oil, they got a shit ton of natural gas, they got a shit ton of all the stuff that we want, and they also have nuclear weapons. Um, you know, that small matter of a giant fucking nuclear arsenal. Uh, I mean, I think they become a pariah state. I don't know. I have no idea how Ukraine gets justice for what happens. But I really, truly, in my heart, I really, truly hope that when the peace talks end, we have a free and independent Ukraine who is able to make a self determination of their foreign policy, their public policy, and domestic policy, and if they so choose, they can join the Western alliances, and the Western alliances will take them. I would really love to see in the next several weeks the Western alliances open up and say, you know what, when they're ready, we're ready. Let's go. Um, in the same way they did with Sweden and Finland this last like 3 or 4 days when they're like, yeah, we'll do an expedited process to get those white guys in. I mean, northern countries in. It would be really great to see that. Of course, there's also not a Russian army stationed in Finland's borders and Sweden's borders. They're not like actively getting bombs dropped on them, so there's that. Um, I really truly hope that when the dust settles on this, we haven't lost Ukraine because it feels like Ukraine wanting to join NATO is why Russia attacked. And if the outcome of the invasion is Ukraine ultimately not joining NATO and choosing to stay neutral, then despite the fact that Russia paid a ridiculously high price to do this, they will have achieved their goals. And for all of the lip service that he gives, I don't really think Putin gives a shit about Russia. I think it was all he'd give up half the military. It's a financial play for him. He gets the money from the resources and the economic activity within Ukraine. At the end of the day, 40,000 dead, 20,000 dead, 10,000 dead, 100,000 civilians in Ukraine, that doesn't affect him. He doesn't pay that price. But if you take away $1 billion, $15 billion, you take away his ability to access his money, that hurts him. And if you take money out of his pocket by taking Ukraine away from Russia, that hurts him. That hits him right in the pocketbook. And that's the same geopolitically, geostrategically. That's the same thing that got Japan, that prodded and prompted Japan to finally attack the United States in Pearl Harbor. It was the sanctions that we kept levying on them for their invasions and attacks in China and Asia. And when we cut off their oil, we cut off their helium, we cut off their, what was it, helium and oil and steel, the big three. They finally attacked Pearl Harbor. And, you know, Putin doesn't give a shit about helium and oil and steel. He has plenty of that, but he does care about the money. And you take away money, and Ukraine, no mistake about it, Ukraine represents a shit ton of money for Vladimir Putin. Ukraine represents money. He doesn't care about how many people it takes to get the money back. If they join the EU, if they join NATO, he loses the ability permanently to have any political influence, any economic influence, and any opportunity to divert resources from Ukraine to his private accounts. If they join the West, he loses Ukraine. And if they don't join the West, he still has a chance. And that's the long game that Putin plays. There's always the chance. As long as you get another at bat, as long as you get another chance. When they join NATO, when they join the EU, the door closes. But as long as they're there, independent and neutral, then he has the chance to meddle with their internal affairs. And he has the chance to put his own people in power. He has a chance to get oligarchs or, you know, his own operatives in parliament, in judicial, in provincial governance, in corporate governance, in federal governance. He has that chance. And if you don't think he can do that, if you don't think that Russian money can influence elections, then you have not been paying attention for the past 5 years. Because literal books have been written about this. There will be classes about this. I mean, there is a reason that people advertise, because money affects opinions, money affects behaviors when you spend it to influence opinions. That's how it's done. That's what people do. Safety Doc's in the house. Holy shit. Safety Doc's in the house. Safety Doc, we got to get you on a show in the next couple of weeks. I've got a book report that I owe you. And I want to get you on the show so we can talk AI and futuristic stuff. That would be a fun Wednesday night conversation. That would be an absolute fun Wednesday night conversation. For those of all of you who don't know, we had a very good conversation on the phone a couple of days ago, talking about robotic cars, AI, form and function, what fully automated cars actually would mean to the style and structure of highways, cities, and neighborhoods, and just the sweeping changes that would come into effect over the course. We say sweeping changes, but it would come into effect over the course of like 20 years. Fascinating shit. We're nerds. It's awesome. I love nerd talk. Nerds will inherit the earth. God, I would give my left nut to get in an automated car and drive to Dallas. Not have to drive for 4 hours, just sit there and read and take a nap, listen to the radio, watch TikTok videos, just scroll and scroll and scroll for 4 hours. Oh, Jesus. Commute to Austin would be glorious. Just sit in the car in your little dedicated lane and just scroll, whatever, climb to the back seat, have sex with all the girls and guys and cats and dogs. I don't know what you're into. Do what you do. You do you, man. It's fine. It would be glorious. Absolutely glorious. And I would rather do it in my car than in a bus. I mean, you can absolutely do that in a bus now. But I'd rather do it in my car because when you get to Austin, you got to drive. I've got to drive to, the specs and do my thing. Topic for conversation for another couple of nights. Not tonight. Tonight we end with hope. Okay, so we've explored out the whole Ukrainian debacle as far as we're going to explore it out, because the answer to the ultimate question, will Ukraine get justice? Will there be peace with justice, or will there just be peace? The ultimate answer to that question is, I don't know. I hope there will be justice. I really do hope that they will get the justice that they rightfully deserve. But I have no idea how that looks. I have no idea. My guess, like I said earlier, is that there'll be a couple of sacrificial generals that are tossed out, like that one and that one. They were the ones that led the effort in Mariupol and Bucha and all the other places. They were the ones. They were the ones that gave the orders to shoot. There'd be a few generals, a few mid-level commanders, soldiers, and they'll round up a few people. They'll get some convictions, but Putin, I don't expect he'll get touched. But I also think that Putin maybe has 5 years, maybe a little bit more time left in office. But that said, there have been dictators who've stayed in office a whole lot longer. So I don't know. I don't know how that shakes out. But the people around him that require operating a functioning economy to continue the lifestyle that they've been afforded by being his lackeys, they might not like the fact that he's costing them everything in their entire lifestyle. They might not like it. But again, I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball. I don't know how that crystal ball works. But if I had to guess, sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will see a peace deal with some war crime stuff coming. 2 or 3 generals will get thrown under the bus. Ukraine will say, we'll put the question of neutrality to a vote. Parliament will shoot it down. They'll join NATO. They'll join the EU. There's a chance that peacekeeping forces or friendship forces or, I don't know, stabilizing forces, I don't know what the fuck they'll call them, from like Poland and Lithuania and Czechoslovakia, they also sent offensive weapons. Forces from friendly bordering nations will come in, not under the NATO flag, but under the national flags, to try and stabilize the situations behind the lines for logistical support or whatever. And that may be the entry point to a larger conflagration. And I hope that it doesn't grow beyond. Jeez, the thought of that is just fucking dreadful. But like I said, we're going to end on hope. I'm not going to end on the. I'm not going to end on the worst case scenario. We're going to end on the best case scenario. Best case scenario. The next 3 weeks, we get a peace deal with a intact Ukraine, retreat back to pre-February 25th positions, Crimea, Donbass, travel security, I guess, between the regions. Russia won't go for that. But nope. I'm ending on hope. I'm not ending on hope. We're ending on hope. Retreat back to pre-February 25th positions. Security security agreements in place, cessation of hostilities, a pre-animus position being established, whatever you want to call it. That I thoroughly hope to see that the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll see. We shall see. What do we got? Yeah, the chat wasn't updating it. The thing that I need to scroll it down. Sorry about that. I'm scrolling it down now. The whole Tuna Nation voted for you, Doc. Doc, what the hell is John talking about? Are you talking about the Tuna Nation voting for you in the city council? You were not voted onto city council today. That's horseshit. Well, I tried to send my vote in. I had 4 people that I was going to put on a plane, send to up to Wisconsin, but the the plane got canceled and didn't make the trip, and I don't know why, but I think it had something to do with swamp gas reflecting off of a cloud, and there was a light that reflected, and that's why you saw the flash. Um, yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened. True, very true. That's what happened. So there you go. You don't get to ride the fire truck on the parade. That's unfortunate, but you can. I do know. I have heard. These are rumors. This is a rumor. Uh, and it's a rumor that I just started, so you know it's good and you know it's true. That if you donate one of your books to the local library, then you will get to ride on the fire truck in the parade on July 4th. So you ought to get on that. Like chop chop. And if you donate more than one book to more than one library, then you can ride on more than one fire trucks. That is definitely something that I heard because my mouth is connected to the air, which is also connected to my ears, which hears things that my mouth says. So take that with the grains of all salts. Whoops. That's not the button that I wanted to push. Sorry about that. Take that with the grains of all the salts. Um, put out a brush fire by myself. Yep, yep, yep. Okay. I think we've. Is that all the chat that we need to go through? Did I get it? Did I miss anything profound in chat? I'll scroll back a little ways. I've been watching chat come up over here. Okay, so here's my. Let me see if can I do a screen capture? I want y'all to see a little behind the scenes. Can we do this? Picture, video capture? No, display capture. Let's do this. Do a quick display capture. I want to capture that one. No, that one. No. No. We'll do console 2. Okay. Ignore the infinity vision real quick. Can we ignore the infinity vision? Yeah, here it is. This is half my screen. No, hang on. Let's fit this to the screen. I want y'all to see the screen that I'm looking at. So, cut. There it is. I see chat over here on my right. Over here on my right, I see the chat. I have another screen over here that has the chat that y'all see. So I'm watching the chat as it goes, but y'all don't see the same chat that I see. I see the chat the way y'all see the chat in chat, but the chat on the screen is kind of a lag because I have to go over here to the other page. Display 1. There's the chat that I'm watching here, and I can scroll it up. I scroll it up on the page, scroll it down on the page. That's what y'all see on the screen. And I'm now going to get rid of that because, oh my God, it's terrible to look at. Did you go? Gone? Hello? There we go. So yeah, I'm watching it as it comes, and I'm looking. That's how I knew Safety Doc was in the chat. Anyway, so there you go. End on hope. We end on hope. The hope is that there will be justice, war crimes for the well, if there have been war crimes committed, they will collect the evidence, they will present the evidence, and my hunch is that if the evidence points to yes, there'll be a couple of generals who get thrown under the bus. And ultimately, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will see peace. Well, a cessation of hostilities. We will see a ceasefire, an end of hostilities. I don't know if we'll see peace. I don't know if we're going to see peace for another 3 or 4 years coming out of Ukraine. And peace, it may not be peace that we see. It may simply be Ukraine has put themselves in a position where they're ultimately untouchable because they join NATO and they join EU and they can't be fucking touched. We'll see. I don't know. I make whiskey for a living. I don't make predictions. I hope I can always have hope, and that's what I do. I can hope for the best. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Um, and on that note, uh, I don't think they should forgive or forget, for that matter. I think I think ultimately what ends up happening here is Russia loses Ukraine forever. Russia has lost Ukraine forever unless they do something to capture the government in the right. And maybe they don't even need to capture the government. Maybe they just need Ukraine to be in this gray area of this gray area between liberal Western democracy and authoritarian Eastern autocracy, which is kind of how the lines have been drawn in the past and kind of how the lines are still drawn. Maybe they just need to be in this like little gray area where they can still muck around the economic. They can still operate within the corrupted gray areas of their society. They can still operate there, and if the democracy slips a little bit, then they get them, like with Hungary, or well, yeah, like what happened in Hungary with in the last 8 years. We saw Hungary slip from liberalizing Western democracy to Viktor Orban taking over control and kicking out journalists and taking over free journalistic enterprises. Turkey, we've seen Turkey backslide from Western liberal democracy, member of NATO, Western liberal democracy, Muslim Western liberal democracy, to a much more authoritarian regime than it's still ostensibly a democracy, but a much more authoritarian regime than the Western countries are willing to admit and willing to acknowledge. Um, Turkey has been a little bit. We're not. That's a that's a that's a future hotspot that we're probably one day going to have to address. But Russia doesn't have to take over Ukraine. That would have been a great goal for them had they been able to succeed that in doing that, because the that was the obvious original intent of this invasion, was to fully take over the country. But if they can keep them in that little gray area of a little bit corrupt, but not really all the way corrupt, just corrupt enough so that they can never join the West, just corrupt enough so they can never go to get NATO, never get in the EU, um, just corrupt enough where they can put their oligarchs in power and divert funds out, um, then that's a win. Uh, because, like I said before, Putin doesn't give a shit how many soldiers it costs or how many tanks it costs or how many airplanes it costs. Putin's interested in one guy and one thing: Putin's money. Putin and Putin's money. That's the only thing he gives a damn about. Uh, and as Ukraine's not NATO, not EU, he has the ability and the opportunity to interfere with their politics, with their economics, and with their society. And if he can, he will. We know this. We're not immune from it. We've seen it happen. And he's done it in Scotland, England, United States, France, Austria, Poland, Germany, Hungary. He's done it. Turkey, Ukraine, Moldova, Transnistria, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. He's done it. We've seen the evidence. We've read the report. Well, some of us have read the reports. We've seen the evidence. He's done it. And he'll continue to do it. And as long the thing that shuts the door, the thing that ends it, joins NATO, joins the EU. He loses his opportunity. So best case scenario, the hope is that the peace deal comes. They go, okay, we'll try for the neutrality. They put it in Parliament. Parliament says no. NATO says, "Here, join us." They join NATO, and then that's the end of the story. Because you can't attack a NATO member. Because a NATO member, well, you get gang jumped if you attack a NATO. You attack a NATO member, they'll jump ugly on you real fast. They don't fuck around. Jesus. All right, guys, this has been fun. This has been therapeutic. I don't know how therapeutic it was for you, but it definitely a chance. It feels good to talk about this stuff. God damn, it's 11:30. Our Tuesday night shows tend to run long. Our happy hours tend to be 90 minutes long. Tomorrow night, a little bit of a boozy philosophy, a little science and philosophy, a little bit of heart and mind coming together in the joys of drink. We talk about pie. We talk about the marvelous, wondrous discovery that was pie. And see here, here's the key. I'm going to tease you just a little bit. Here's the thing. Ancient. I don't want to say ancient. Well, we'll early. We'll go with early. Early philosophers were also early scientists. They were one and the same. Socrates, Aristotle, uh, uh, Euclid, Jesus, uh, Cleopatra, uh, not the woman, the person, the other Cleopatra, the Greek Cleopatra, uh, Aristophanes, not Ecclestes. All of these guys, they were philosophers, but they were also scientists at the same time. They were trying to understand the universe around them. They were trying to understand the world. They were trying to understand the way things worked. And without a they were developing the scientific method of inquiry and experimentation and inquiry and experimentation. But a lot of the inquiry and experimentation they were doing was with numbers and Pythagoras, another one that was with numbers and the way that numbers worked together and explaining the way things worked with ratios and things like that. And these guys without computers, without satellites, without mechanical tools of any type, were able to calculate the circumference of the Earth. They were able to calculate uh, the size of the planet, the width of the planet, the distance to the moon, the distance to the sun, the shape of things, of things unseen. Though they theorized about elements and atoms and the way things came together. They were wrong about the theories of atoms and elements and the way things came together, but they laid the foundation for others to come through and look at it and say, well, it's not exactly earth, wind, and fire, but earth, wind, and fire come together to form different things. And to be able to pick these things apart and break it down, and they were the giants on whose shoulders that we stood. Even they understood the ratios between. They didn't really understand. They couldn't really define the number. We can't define the number, but they understood circumference and diameter. They were related. They were related with every single circle, and that's when it started to get fascinating. That's when it started to get really cool, and they were able to deduce and develop all kinds of really fantastic stuff. Is it Mr. Great Shot? Is that the one? No. Yeah, it was Mr. Great Shot. See, you say peace, love, and whiskey. Twidget doesn't do that, unfortunately. The emojis were much better. Um, so that's one of the things that's one of the reasons why my Wednesday night shows are some of my favorites, because we can do science and philosophy and combine the two together and not just simply look at what it is, but also look at what it means. Tomorrow night we do pie. And I might have a piece of pie on the show, just as a visual aid. Maybe I'll have some moon pies. Summon the moon witch that came to our cabin or our tent site that one time. Plato was a pothead. Plato was a pothead. They all enjoyed their substances. They all had their preferred poisons. But check that out. This is what I did for tonight's show. I got a little spinny logo thing. I did that. I'm proud of myself. Thumbs up in chat for the spinny logo thing. Come on, come on. Give me a shout. Give me a what? Can I get a what? But that's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. We're talking pie tomorrow night. It's gonna be dope as hell. Where is my closing screen? Is that my closing screen? All right. That's it. All right, guys. See you tomorrow night. We talk pie. If you can't make it tomorrow night, join us Thursday for trivia. If you can't make it for trivia, join us for the Friday night live. It is Greg Day, and he's a fantastic performer. I've watched some of his videos. He is a fantastic performer. You're going to love the fucking show. And if you don't, there's something wrong with you. You should go see a therapist. Cheers. I mean, probably wouldn't hurt to go see a therapist anyway. Anyway, just in general, it's good to have somebody to talk to every once in a while. Be awesome to each other. May the road always rise to meet your feet and the wind always be at your back. Cheers and good night.